Community. A word defined by, well, every source, as a group brought together by a commonality, be that an interest, where they live, their way of life, or of doing something. In Chapter 5 of the Handbook of Community Practice, Robert J. Chaskin defines community as something that suggests both images and feelings of identity, belonging, shared circumstance, and common cause. Community, in most circumstances, is understood as a place of union for individuals who share that common interest. A network, a body of people brought together for this reason. However, when a circumstance arises that not only encourages individuals to keep their distance from each other, but to eventually isolate completely from those around them, forcing this idea of coming together into a distant and almost unreachable goal, how can we make a community stay just that, a community? This is Communities and Curveballs.
Click record now. This has been great, like having this feature to be able to record these.
Hi, I was going to say that. I didn't know that you could. So
It's dead easy, and then it just saves right away.
fantastic.
It's been frustrating as well because almost all my interviews have been on Zoom other than two, and the two that weren't on Zoom didn't record, and the second one was with a mental health nurse who lives in the community, and it was a brilliant conversation. And it got to the end of like half an hour and I looked and my phone wasn't even recording at all the whole time. So frustrating. So, but it is what it is. We just have to work with what we've got. So
that's a shame.
I know. Technology is great when it works, as everybody says.
I began my year on placement at Rays of Hope Cancer Support Group. Rays of Hope is a service local to me that offers support to individuals that have been affected by cancer, be that having cared for a friend or a family member that has been through cancer, or having experienced it themselves. The group offers support to these individuals in the form of fitness classes, craft classes, swimming groups, writing groups, hope courses, amongst others. Prior to the disruption to a docu-series that I was making based on the group, I described Rays of Hope as a place that would not only challenge me, but change me. I touched on the idea of the Transformational Leadership Theory, which I originally stated had came from the 2003 works of Fitzgerald and Shute, which is actually incorrect. This theory comes from the work of McGregor-Burns in 1978, who defined this idea as being when a leader has passion that is contagious, that spreads to others, and a common goal is formed, and ultimately this team, as a power force, seek to deliver the best service that they can, or to meet the need in the best way possible. I still believe Rays of Hope to be a place that exemplifies this. Linda O'Malley, the founder of the group, has a passion from her own experience, having watched her mother and her sister go through cancer, but also just her heart to want to help people. Ultimately, that passion is alive in all the team, and the staff and the volunteers at Rays of Hope. And while I learned a lot from the team, the volunteers, the staff members at Rays of Hope, some of the key lessons that I learned came from spending time with the members of the group, like Aina, who would encourage me to just have a cup of tea and give me a hug as I came into the building, or Graham, who encouraged me to be a part of the writing group and actually to write a short story, something that I loved doing but hadn't done since high school. Spending time with these service users not only encouraged me to take it slow and to enjoy the moment, but most importantly, how each individual, despite their common interest and their common goal, are different, are unique. Yes, the service users at Rays of Hope come together because they have all been affected by cancer in some form. But they're all individual people with an individual story, each of them worth being told. And I believe that had the docu-series continued, that it would have been a great opportunity to showcase these stories. However, what this did teach me is even more so about the Transformational Leadership Theory, the idea of individualised concern, a key factor of this theory, that even though a team works to achieve a goal for the common good, they also have individual care and concern for every member within that organisation. Rays of Hope, following their closure due to the outbreak that we're going to discuss later on in this project, pushed me to look into individualised concern, transformational leadership, and working together in a community, out with the organisation, and into the local geographical community of Elderslie. Elderslie is a village in Renfrewshire in Scotland. It boasts just over 5,000 people in population as of 2018 and hosts local landmarks such as the Wallace Monument, not the Stirling one, the Wallace Yew, which is a decades-old tree planted on the grounds of the Wallace Memorial, and the Brandy Burn flows through the village. The village has been known for years as one of those typical towns where everyone knows everyone, there's a lot of community togetherness, a lot of things going on in the community. Despite having grown up in the village and having lived here for almost 2 decades now, I was still limited in my understanding of what it looked like to be a resident in the village in past times. Also to be a resident in the village as a parent or as someone who runs a local business. So for that reason, I wanted to speak to individuals who experienced these things in order to broaden my perspective of what it was like to live in the village.
So could you tell me a little bit about your experience living in Elderslie, how long you've been here, how you came to the village in the first place?
I have lived here for all my days. So I was actually born in Paisley, but my parents both moved to Elderslie, I think around 1963, 64 maybe, and I was born in 67. My parents had a house and were given they were one of the first residents to be given the brand new houses, which were the flats in Lomond Gardens.
Wow.
They used to be an extension of the back doors of Wallace Avenue. So Wallace Avenue's back doors came right up to the flats, to where the garages are in the flats in Lomond Gardens. Okay. So my parents were given one of those houses, which were amazing, 2-bed house with underfloor heating with this veranda that everybody was all taken on with. And so I lived in Lomond Gardens all my days.
I was born in Wallace Avenue, and I moved to Barclay Avenue when I was 9 months old.
Okay.
And then I lived in Barclay Avenue until I get married, and when I get married I bought a house in Windsor Crescent and I'm still in it.
Okay.
So I've not ever moved out of Elderslie, ever, in my 53 years on the planet.
So I moved here in 2003 and it was because I had just had my first son, and I just thought Elderslie looked a really nice area to bring him up. And luckily we came here when he was 4 months old, and it just felt like home.
My wife, she comes from Elderslie, so she's the same. So when both of us got together, we got married, we got through a flat round in the Lomond Gardens. Then subsequently after that, after we get married, we bought a house in Renfrewshire Road. So we've been there ever since.
I was curious to understand what it is that draws these residents to this village in particular.
So I grew up in Johnston with my family, and as soon as I left university, I got my first flat and moved to Paisley. But always I kind of wanted to be in a community that valued family, that valued helping one another, and I think for me Elderslie was that community. And obviously I grew up in Johnston, went to Paisley, and there is that in both communities, but I think for me growing up in Johnston, I always looked at Elderslie as the village where people came together. It was really clean, and particularly for me, from being a primary school teacher, I wanted my son to go to a good primary school. So actually the biggest reason moving to Elderslie was to get my little boy into Wallace Primary.
I just like the idea that it's home for me, and my dad was born in Elderslie many years ago in the early 19s. I think my dad was born in 1918 or 1919. There's a bit of debate about that. I think it's 1918 and my sisters think it's 1919. And we can't find anything to prove that. So his family were from Canal Street, just across the road from Nisa.
Okay.
And, you know, he was brought up there, and my gran lived there, and everyone lived there. And then my brothers and sisters all kind of moved away, and I seem to be the only one that stayed here. And I don't have my mum now. I don't have anyone other than me in Elderslie now, and I just kind of feel it's just home for me.
But for the Wallace, I just felt it was such a kind of community-based school. There was so many other things that kind of, they made friends with local children round about. And I just think they had so many the Wallace, I must admit, kind of gave them so much opportunity to try different things. And like even in our local area now, like they both kind of joined the kind of Scouts again, which was in the local community as well in Elderslie. The swimming baths, when they were small as well, you know, both the kind of toddler swimming in Elderslie. So again, that was things when I was new to the area, I didn't know anybody else. So when I was only 4 months old, obviously tapping into these services, like tapping into the swimming baths with the toddler groups, it was good for me to get to know people, because I say I came from Renfrew, so I didn't have any support networks in Elderslie, and I must admit I just felt really included.
Leslie Woodhouse mentioned the swimming baths. Now, as someone who went to the local primary school, I remember in primary 7 in particular, there was a discounted hour of swimming, if I remember correctly, between 3 p.m. and 4 p.m. on a Friday. And my best friend and I used to sprint at full speed down the hill to get to the swimming baths from our primary school just to get that discounted hour of swimming. Now, obviously things have changed over the years. We no longer have access to the library or the swimming baths, as Leslie mentioned. But how else have these residents seen the village change over the years?
It's really changed because I was brought up in the scheme down in Barclay Avenue, and sometimes I walk the dog down there, and it's just so different to what it was like when I was there. Although some of the neighbours are still the same, it's just so different. Because there used to be a big chapel in Barclay Avenue.
Really?
Yeah, and it's now all houses. And when I grew up, the chapel was built in my lifetime, so it was a park, and that park became the chapel. And the chapel, I think it was called Our Holy Redeemer.
Okay.
And that was there all of my lifetime. And then when I moved up to here, in that time it's been knocked down and it's now all the houses.
Loamy Gardens was a fab place that I dearly, dearly loved. The amount of people that very different from nowadays, because there's too much technology now for kids and things, but we didn't have anything like that. You were out playing all the time, in the barn, up the woods, everywhere probably we shouldn't have been. When you reflect on this day and age where children are, you know, it's deemed not safe to go away from your own door or your own garden. These kids don't know. I really don't know how we would have coped with it, because we were out all the time. The cemetery was the place to play.
Yeah.
It's easy to relate strong community spirit with access to facilities, because we can easily assume that having more access to facilities within a community means there's more places for community members to gather and to form relationships. However, it's reported by its residents as still having a strong community spirit, this village. So how has Elderslie kept with the times in order to do that? One of the ways they've done that is by using one of the most powerful and common tools in our modern society, which is social media. Elderslie Folk is a community group that was set up in 2013. I spoke to Linda Ann Coyle to understand how she got involved with this group that acts as a resource hub for information for residents past and present to share their experience of living in the village.
I like Facebook for keeping in contact more with people that you don't see.
Yeah.
So the way years ago you had like pen friends and all that kind of nonsense and stuff, I like to keep it, like my cousin's in Australia, so I used it for that. So it was good in the Elderslie page for when it originally started. It was a lot of really older and original people from Elderslie that was on it, and basically it was used to reminisce
Mm-hmm.
and talk about Elderslie, and do you remember the youth club, and do you remember we went here, and a lot of people are married, so their new names, and you're like, I don't know that person, don't know that. So when you see the profile picture, you're like, oh my goodness, that's such and such, but their names change. I'm not married, so my name's still the same. And Coyle's obviously a popular name in Elderslie, and a very well known name in Elderslie. And my brother still stays in Elderslie. So and my parents still living at Waverley Gardens. We're all within a close knit, and a lot of Elderslie was like that. When you moved out, you didn't want to move out and go somewhere else. You wanted to move out but still stay in Elderslie.
Yeah.
And my first house was in Foxpark, and I hated it. It was a lovely wee house, but I hated it. I needed to be back in the village. So when I joined the Elderslie Facebook page and getting to know everybody, and getting in touch with people that I hadn't saw and heard of for years. And it was good because I also, when I left school at 17, I started working the Cabin Bar, which is now the Butcher's Steak and Grill.
Okay.
And so there was a few girls from Elderslie that all worked in the pub. So the page was good when we all came back together. And do you remember that, working in the pub? So it was good. And again, the pub was just a smaller version of the village because everybody drank the pub. It was all older people. I learned loads and loads. It was the best years. From 17 till 23. So that was the initial reason why I liked the page. And then Andrew said to me, the page is getting a bit out of hand. I knew Andrew Frey was a wee boy. He was actually next door to us in Lomond Gardens, and then they moved to Gleniffer to get the bigger house. Do you want to help with the page? And that's when I started helping out. The original guy that done the Elderslie page was the boy Kevin Docherty.
Okay.
And he did an amazing job. Kevin's he's younger than me. He didn't want it. After he had got it up and running, and he always said he didn't want it as an advertising page. So to be fair, we're disrespecting his original wishes because it was his page. 2,200 members.
Wow.
And then you've got the top. You've got it shows you your top 10. So the majority of it are 64% of it is female.
Mm-hmm.
And 35.6 are men. And the age group categories is quite the biggest age group category is 45 to 54 is the highest age and gender.
There are many contributing elements to what keep Elderslie and its residents connected. As well as the Elderslie folk, there is also the Elderslie Community Council, which was reformed in recent years. The members of the Community Council strive consistently to access better resources for the community, sourcing funding for the local play park, and introducing elements such as Christmas lights and planters around the village. Ultimately, helping show the residents of Elderslie that they are cared for and that we want the community to head in the right direction. However, with times changing, having access to social media resources such as Elderslie Folk could prove particularly useful if we were to end up in a time where accessing external facilities is no longer an option.
Latest UK case of coronavirus is the first to be contracted within the country rather than abroad. The man walked in.
Coronavirus, COVID-19, continues and will continue to spread across the world and our country over the next few months.
Firstly, I can confirm that as of 9 o'clock this morning, there have been 1,563 positive cases confirmed, which is an increase of 179 from yesterday.
In late March 2020, the UK government made the decision to move the country into lockdown in order to combat the spread of the COVID-19 virus. The impact was undeniable, and as a student, I can only understand on my behalf the impact that it had on my education. However, I was curious to understand the impact that it had out with my own.
I wanted to talk to you with the knowledge that you are a primary school teacher. So part of this documentary will look into how schools have coped with the lockdown to try and ensure that children are still getting the best education that they can, if that's possible. So it would be beneficial to me if you could just share your experience of how your workplace coped with ensuring that, again, kids are still have access to materials and things like that.
Okay, sure. Well, yeah, it was all had to be done in such a quick and a short space of time, really. We decided that our best way to communicate was using a platform that some staff were familiar with. So one of our members of management had used Google Classroom previously, so we decided to go with that. We were going to be sort of setting work through that. We then quickly decided to get packs in order, because initially we're told it could just be a couple of weeks. So we had to get an initial 2-week home pack, which wasn't going to be reliant on technology. So it was sending home worksheets, booklets and things. And also we did give optional online access to sites that we used in the school as well. And we also gave everybody their Google Classroom logins, just in case it was going to be longer than the 2 weeks.
As a parent, Leslie Woodhouse also gave me some insight into how she had seen her children impacted by the pandemic.
For the older ones, they may just, so Cam is obviously going into 6th year. Obviously their exams have finished. There's not really any work coming from the school for, I don't know what it's like for Emma, but there's nothing for, and I kind of feel that he's in a bit of limbo just now, because obviously, hopefully with his marks from his prelims, he'll obviously carry on, and that's fine, and he'll be able to get his subjects that he wants for 6th year. But I feel as if he's been kind of left in limbo, you know, because he doesn't know what he's doing for next year yet. I know the school have been in touch this week, and they've sent me a wee questionnaire asking has he got access to the internet, so I'm hoping then they're maybe going to try their timetables. But on another flip side, he's going into 4th year, and he has had a ton of work, possibly too much, I think, in certain times. The teachers are now beginning to realise that they're giving them all the same time scales, so they've got a lot of work to put in at the same time, and hopefully they're going to try and spread it over the week a wee bit better. But I have to be honest and say that Castlehead have been good for him. They have kept him kind of ticking over with a lot of work. And they've also this week sent a wellbeing thing to them both to fill out.
What is that?
Don't know how effective. I think it was on their, see, like their show my homework that they have. So it was like, it's just like a wee questionnaire. I said there wasn't many questions on it, but I think it's basically asking how they're feeling.
Right. Okay.
But I don't know how much I don't know how much would actually tell the truth, and I don't know whether that would work for a lot of kids.
Yeah.
Actually being honest about how this kind of, the whole thing's affecting them.
Another group also impacted by this were local business owners. I spoke to Andy Kennedy, owner of Kennedy's Candles, and Kirsty Reid, owner of Little Pink Co.
Someone that obviously owns a small business, how have you found that the lockdown has impacted you?
Terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah, really bad. Yep, I've had them. I now have an Etsy page. I've just got an order through this morning on that, but it's been very, very quiet, very slow.
Yeah.
Most of my regular customers that I haven't heard from anybody. And saying that, possibly part of my fault as well, because I haven't posted them on Facebook to say, you know, if people want the candles or whatever, I can deliver. You know, we can obviously come to an arrangement if they want them. So hopefully this week I'm going to get something done about that. You know, but I have a couple of regular customers that do buy wax melts off me quite often. So I've been getting an order from them, but nothing. You know, I mean, I've lost out quite a lot on different events I could have been at. Obviously, the one Raise a Hope was one of them, Spring Fair. So that was one. I've only got one other event booked at the moment, and that'll be September. And even that, we don't even know whether that will go ahead or not in September.
Initially, it was pretty quiet, to be honest. I think for me, at the stage I was at, ready to move into a new phase, I was a bit apprehensive and maybe a bit upset at the beginning, thinking, oh goodness, I might need to go and get a real job. Thinking that my dream for this year would possibly be over. It was very, very quiet in the beginning, very quiet.
It's undoubtable the impact that this pandemic and the subsequent lockdown has had on different groups in society. Parents, teachers, students, small business owners, village residents. So, what have Elderslie and its residents done to generate positivity in such a challenging time?
Insights for the last 28 days. So the posts on it are something like, it's been up 49% in the last 28 days. So that's obviously our pandemic's making it.
Yeah. As mentioned, Elderslie Folk is a resource that has been used up until now in order to keep residents connected. But in a time where we're being told to distance, how has Elderslie Folk been beneficial?
2 weeks, in fact, just at the beginning of lockdown, there was a wee woman on it, and she was very concerned about, she had no phone. And you know, people are always on saying, oh, is Virgin Media down, or is Sky TV down? And that's a good thing as well. And everyone's saying, oh no, I'm okay. And people don't like giving their address, so I'm in the kind of Hillview, Abbey Road area. And she was on about 3 or 4 times that night, and I thought, and I used to work for Virgin Media, and I have my friend runs the fault section, so I was actually quite concerned, because I thought that could be my mum, and she's really worried she's not got a phone. So I private messaged her. I put a wee bit under it saying, I've sent you an email, I've sent you a wee message, but because we're not friends, you might not see it. Told her how to kind of look for it. Here she came back, and I said, look, if you can give me your address, I explained. I said that here's my number, because I didn't want to think I was intruding. I gave her my mobile number, my address, and I said, I've got a friend that might be able to help. So I got all her details, sent it to James, and because she couldn't get through on the phone to Virgin Media, because a lot of their call centres had really dramatically reduced the staffing. So through the page, through my contact, we had an engineer out the next day, sorted her phone, had her up and running, and she was absolutely delighted. So I think for that sort of thing, that's what the page is for.
Yeah. As mentioned, Elderslie Folk has proven over the years to be a great place for Elderslie residents to stay connected, and most particularly during a time such as this, has proven to be useful to the vulnerable people in the village as well. However, Elderslie Folk isn't as far as the reach goes in terms of how Elderslie has utilised social media, particularly during this lockdown.
Before lockdown, certainly Elderslie Folk chat has always been very positive and looking out to do things, and then they created Elderslie Cares, and I was involved in the leaflet drops for that.
Okay.
And it was quite interesting, because my area was Kings Road and Auchinlodgement Road, so it's quite it's people that I wouldn't expect need help, but we delivered anyway, and it was amazing how many people put on Elderslie Cares, thank you for the leaflet from these areas. So whether they needed it or not, they acknowledged that the thought was there, which is good. But I certainly feel like when I'm out in the street now, my street's very quiet, but everyone is all speaking to each other now. If you go out to the car or whatever, especially when the weather's nice, everyone's taking the time to keep their social distance but talk to you.
Yeah.
And
I've just realised while editing that I never actually explained what Elderslie Cares is. So just to add on a little bit from what Joyce explained just there, Elderslie Cares is a Facebook page that branched off of the Elderslie Folk page. It encouraged residents to come together and to donate items to their local Scouts Hall, such as groceries they never needed anymore, like non-perishables, that kind of thing. It was to allow for a time where supermarkets might not be as accessible, especially for vulnerable members of the community. Just gives them an easier access to things that they might need. And then branching off from the Elderslie Cares page was something called Elderslie Upcycle, which acted kind of like a free marketplace. So residents could post on items that they no longer used, no longer needed, that were in good condition, at least for the most part, and residents could go and pick them up for free. Things like this are especially useful in a time where we don't have access to shops, and it's also just another way of keeping residents connected. Thanks. It's easy to see that Elderslie has done what they can to bring their residents together in order to help the vulnerable people in the community, ultimately people that just need a helping hand. But what about the smaller groups that we spoke about? Education and small business owners. I spoke to Natalie Burgess, who has used her own experience in order to try and fill the gap for children who would not have the same access to educational resources they normally would. Natalie started up a Facebook page called Lighthouse, Peace, Joy and Learning.
What is the purpose behind Lighthouse? I know that's a super broad question, but just answer it as best as you can.
Yeah, so I suppose I'll start kind of like the most recent purpose. So as you'd said, I've got a background in primary school teaching. I worked with children, kind of primary 3, primary 4, and I've got such a passion for working with children. It's what God's called me to do. It's in my heart just to encourage children and allow them to see the person that they're supposed to be. And I think I left teaching a couple of years ago. Always wanted to start my own charity to really encourage children, build them up, but I never knew how to start it. I had the vision for it. You know, it was going to be a community where children would know their purpose, where children would know they're loved, for children that have been through anything in their life. This was a place that could breathe life into them. But as I say, I didn't know how to start it. And then when the schools closed because of the coronavirus, I was like, I need to do something. Like, I've got these skills, I've got this passion, I've got this heart behind Lighthouse, and I just knew I had to start it. So the easiest thing to do was to start a Facebook group, and just kind of got started. And the whole reason behind the Facebook group was basically for parents to have a platform for their children to be able to learn, to be able to have hope and peace, because so many people are anxious right now, they're scared for their future. So it was that kind of place where they could get a place of peace, where they could have some fun, and where they could get ideas for their kids, because if they're working and trying to homeschool, it's like, well, how do we balance it all? So I thought, well, having the half-hour slot where we could have fun and learn and have that peace, but also have activities that they could then do, it would kind of help parents in a variety of ways, but also help the children at the same time. So we always start off with some sort of encouragement or peace or something, or kind of deep breathing, you know, anything that I kind of decide that the night before. I always plan it the night before. And then we normally do a dance. So we often use Go Noodle, which is a really cool video app for kids. So we do some dancing. We did some Zumba this morning. And then after we do our dance, we come into a learning concept. So sometimes we've learned about, you know, patterns. Sometimes we learned about shapes. Last week we were learning about the creation of the world, which was amazing, looking at the birds and the landscape. And then this week it's all about how they were created for a purpose and for a reason. So we do a little video about that, or a story, whatever suits best. And then we do a fun game, and then we sing a couple of songs, and we always end with Ren's Collections Lighthouse. So it's like something we do every single day, and they now they know all the words and the actions, and it's their favourite part of the session.
And what about small business owners? I spoke to Kirsty Reid about what she has done in utilising her creativity in order to keep spirits high as well.
Well, I think in the first couple of weeks, you started to see wee rumours of people, you know, how can we help each other out? I was involved in doing leaflets for Elderslie Cares. We all kind of helped out, and I thought, what could I do? So initially I started doodling a couple of colouring pages, thought people might be interested, think it might help a couple of local kids. And then a lot of people were putting rainbows in their windows, so I'd done some rainbows and positive quotes, and then I did one with a bear on it, and a school contacted me and said, could you do it with our school name on it? And before you knew it, within a matter of weeks, there was thousands of them all over the place. Schools, a particular school in Glasgow, had made all my colouring pages up into booklets, left them on the school steps with colouring pages, gave out 120 in a day. They are now all over the world. They are some in New Zealand. We have a friend who's an art teacher in the States, and he has now done it with his art class, and they sent pictures back over. And the stories I've heard has been so lovely. Kids been able to send them to their grandparents, or people who are not feeling very well. Every day it was hundreds upon hundreds of requests for personalised ones. People were sending them as birthday gifts. I have some that have gone to, the Schahalian ward up in the Queen Elizabeth, into the Kids Cancer ward. Loads of businesses have done them for competitions, so it's been great from that side, not only encouraging kids and finding something else for them to do. It's been great for supporting other small businesses as well, and it's been fab. I didn't expect it to spread as far as it did.
One of the biggest things we can take away from what Elderslie and its residents have done is how there is no one method for coping with a lockdown or a pandemic or an unforeseen circumstance such as the one that we are facing right now. When I began this project, I sought out to bring forward a structured framework for community leaders, community organisations to follow in the event of unforeseen circumstances such as the one we are facing just now. However, as the weeks went on, the more I communicated with the residents of Elderslie, the more work that I saw going on in the community, and the responses and their variety that I saw from residents to the work that was going on, I realised that finding a solution to work through things like this isn't as black and white as I first thought it was going to be. And I realised that offering a structured framework isn't necessarily something that can be done. Instead, what I saw were opportunities for residents within the community to offer services, to donate, to keep residents company through their community pages. And I also saw individuals with talents of craft or residents that have experience teaching to be able to share their services. You didn't have a one-size-fits-all approach to helping residents stay connected. Instead, you had people offering the resources that they had in order to generate the positivity that was needed in such a challenging time. And rather than allowing me to see a structured framework that could be brought forward, using Elderslie as a subject matter instead reminded me of the transformational leadership that I had first saw during my time on placement at Rays of Hope. What you have is people who have this common goal to want to keep the spirits high when people's minds could be in dark places. But within that, you also have individualised concern, as mentioned, a key factor of transformational leadership. Because while this community, while these residents sought to meet the same goal, there was no one-size-fits-all approach, as mentioned within the community at the time. People offered what they had and what they were good at. In the end, albeit there are differences in their time in the village, their careers, their experience of this pandemic, Elderslie, with individuals putting their best foot forward, stayed just as that, a community. What can we as community educators take away from this? Maybe not anything new, but what we can take from Elderslie's proactivity is a lesson on how to exercise transformational leadership. In closing, I ask you this: what does community mean to you? Does it mean to belong? To be a part of something? Belonging to a community means belonging as an individual, and as ambiguous as it may seem, every experience is different, and every community member is worth being valued. Multi-individual communities and complicated curveballs. Thanks for watching. For more information on this project, don't forget to check out the website in the link below. Thanks.
Happy place, and it was what? What is that again? Welcoming.
Okay,
but she's also, what's that word I'm looking for? A pain in the ass? No.
18, and hosts local landmarks such as the Wallace Monument or the Wallace U. The Brandy Burn throws through the grounds of the Wallace Memorial, and the Brandy Burn It's easy to understand. No, it's not easy to understand.